Today, we're going to talk about an issue that hits right at the heart of Minnesota's Main Street. It's about a law that directly impacts every small business owner in our state. We're talking about asset seizure and why reforming it right now is so absolutely critical. So let me just start with a really direct question. I want you to imagine this for a second. Can the government take your business accounts, your company vehicle, maybe even your personal savings? Can they take all of it before you've ever been found guilty of anything? Well, the shocking answer here in Minnesota is yes, it absolutely can. And it happens because of a legal process that honestly, most people have no idea even exists. So let's get into how this actually works. The entire system is built on a foundation that just feels backwards. It flips a core American value on its head, operating on a premise of guilty until proven innocent. But here's the twist. It's not the person who's on trial, it's their property. This whole process is called civil asset forfeiture, and that line on the screen is the most important part to understand. The property itself is the defendant. Think about how strange that is. This isn't a criminal case against a person. It's a civil lawsuit against a thing. Your cash, your car, your building. And that little legal distinction, it changes everything. Okay, so this slide really lays it out. There are two very different paths here. On the left, you've got criminal forfeiture. This is what most people think of. It makes sense, right? A person gets convicted of a crime, and then the government can take the assets connected to that crime. But now, look at the right side. That's civil forfeiture. No conviction needed. All the government needs is a suspicion that the property is tied to a crime. And right then, the tables turn. The burden is now completely on you, the owner, to go hire a lawyer and spend your own money to prove that your property is innocent. You know, this quote from the Institute for Justice just says it all, doesn't it? Our whole justice system is built on innocent until proven guilty, but this law flips it completely upside down. And here's where it gets really problematic. Under Minnesota law enforcement agencies can keep up to 70% of the money they get from forfeited property. This creates what's known as a perverse incentive. It blurs the line between enforcing the law for public safety and seizing assets to pad a budget. It's policing for profit. Now, the argument you'll always hear is that this is a tool to take down the big guys. You know, the drug lords and the criminal masterminds. But when you actually look at the data, the reality on the ground tells a very, very different story. This isn't about kingpins. Reports from our own state auditor are pretty revealing. Take a look at this chart. The average value of property taken is less than $1,700, but the really telling number is the one on the right, the median. That means half of all seizures are for property worth less than $400. That's not cartel money. That's rent money. That's grocery money for a family. So what happens when the government takes $400 from you? Well, you call a lawyer, and you find out it's going to cost you thousands of dollars to fight to get it back. What do? The math just doesn't work. Most people are forced to just walk away. And that's exactly why over 95% of these cases are never even challenged. The government wins by default. And it's not just us saying this. The Star Tribune looked into it and came to the same conclusion. Because of this impossible financial situation, innocent people just have to let their property go. It's not because they're guilty, it's because they can't afford to prove they're innocent. You know, numbers and stats are one thing, but to really understand the devastating human cost of these laws, we need to talk about a real person. Let's look at the story of Robyn Stepney. She is a Minnesota entrepreneur whose life was completely turned upside down, not because of a conviction, but just because of an investigation. This timeline is a slow-motion train wreck. In November 2021, her business is investigated. Just 1 month later, the state cuts off every single dollar coming into her company. Then, for the next 2.5 years, nothing. She's stuck in legal limbo. No charges are ever filed. She's never even interviewed or shown a shred of evidence. Then, in the middle of 2024, with no conviction, no hearing, no due process, the state starts taking her personal money, levying her bank accounts, garnishing her wages. That's not justice. That's punishment without a trial. And the financial fallout? It's catastrophic. An estimated $10 million in business and personal wealth just gone. An entire life's work, a successful business, destroyed without ever having a day in court. But it's never just about the money, is it? The human cost is impossible to measure. In her own words, the process is suffocating. It's this constant state of stress and anxiety with no end in sight, no relief. This is exactly what happens when the process itself becomes the punishment. Robyn's story is absolutely heartbreaking. But it's not a fluke. It isn't some rare anomaly. It's the predictable result of a legal system that is systematically stacked against property owners from the very beginning. I mean, just look at the hurdles an innocent person has to clear. First, the government can just take your stuff without any kind of prior hearing. Then, the burden is on you to file a lawsuit to get your own property back, and you only have a short 60-day window to do it. As we've already seen, the cost to do that is often way more than what was taken. And this is the most important part, all of this can happen even if you are never ever charged with a crime.
Okay, so the problem is clear. It's a mess. But here's the good news. This is fixable. And fixing it, well, it's a huge opportunity to stand up for fairness, to protect our constituents, and to defend property rights. This is a winning issue, and there's a really clear path forward.
In fact, a group of business owners and concerned citizens have already organized. They formed the Minnesota Small Business Due Process Coalition, and they are leading the charge for some common sense reforms that should have broad bipartisan support. And they've laid out a simple 5-point plan. Step 1, require a criminal conviction. It's simple. End civil forfeiture. Get back to innocent until proven guilty. Step 2, guarantee a prompt hearing. No more leaving people in legal limbo for years. Step 3 is huge. End policing for profit. Send all forfeiture money to the state's general fund, and you remove that dangerous financial incentive. Step 4, protect innocent owners, especially third parties who had no idea their property was involved in a crime. And finally, Step 5, mandate judicial oversight. A judge has to sign off before personal assets can be seized in these cases. It's that simple. None of this is radical. These reforms are just about restoring fundamental principles of justice that we all believe in. Innocent until proven guilty, the right to due process, the protection of private property. For any elected official, standing up for the small business owners who are the absolute backbone of our communities isn't just good policy, it's good politics.
So really, the question is simple. When Minnesota's Main Street entrepreneurs are caught up in a system that assumes they're guilty and denies them their day in court, will you stand with them? The time for reform is now.